The best is yet to come. And it does get better and better for a Christian. Not as far as this world is concerned. Here's how it is. You get sicker and sicker of this. But this is not the end. Death is that transition over into where we belong forever. The day you're born, you start on a journey. And you're a pilgrim passing through this world. The day you die, you arrive at your eternal destination. So we better prepare for that. All right, let's go to Matthew chapter 4. Some of you already turned to John chapter 2, and I told you last week we may do something. We're still talking about the life of Christ, but we're going to read about the temptation of Christ this morning. Matthew chapter 4. It's in Mark, it's in Luke, it's in Matthew, the temptation of Christ. Matthew and Luke give a pretty detailed account of it. Mark doesn't. It's just a real brief pass by. John doesn't talk about it, and so that's why we didn't get it in the beginning of the thing here. But all right, Matthew chapter 4. Let's start reading verse 1. Then was Jesus led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterward and hungered. And when the tempter came to him, he said, If thou be the Son of God, command that these stones be made into bread. But he answered and said, It is written, Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. Then the devil taketh him up into the holy city, and sitteth him on a pinnacle of the temple, and saith unto him, If thou be the Son of God, cast thyself down. For it is written, He shall give His angels charge concerning thee, and in their hands they shall bear thee up, lest at any time thou dash thy foot against a stone. Jesus said unto him, It is written again, Thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. Again the devil taketh him up into an exceeding high mountain, and showeth him all the kingdoms of the world, and the glory of them, and saith unto him, All these things will I give thee, if thou wilt fall down and worship me. Then saith Jesus unto him, Get thee hence, Satan. He didn't just say, It is written. He said, Get out of here. Get thee hence, Satan. For it is written, Thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and Him only shalt thou serve. Then the devil leaveth him. And behold, angels came and ministered unto him. How many times have I said this, because the Bible says it, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Hebrews chapter 4 and verse 15 says, For we have not an high priest which cannot be touched with the feeling of our infirmities, but was in all points tempted like as we are, yet without sin. And then in Hebrews 2, verses 16 through 18. These are some key verses. 14 through 18 in Hebrews 2 are very important to understand all this matter and all about why Jesus came. For verily He took not on Him the nature of angels, but He took on Him the seed of Abraham. Wherefore in all things it behooved Him to be made like unto His brethren, that He might be a merciful and faithful high priest in things pertaining to God, to make reconciliation for the sins of the people. For in that He Himself hath suffered being tempted, He is able to succor them that are tempted. I want to check that. All right. Now then, Jesus suffered being tempted. I could spend several weeks preaching on this right here. I really believe I could. There's so much here. But I'm not planning on that. But we're going to just glean from it this morning a few things that'll help us, I think. Now, I've kind of tried to point this out in John chapter 1 and John chapter 2. The earthly ministry of Jesus reflects the experiences of every human concerning the road to redemption. The blood was represented by the water turned into wine at the wedding. Then the next is the temple being cleansed. And we talked about that last week. I think Jesus, He's our forerunner. I think He traveled the road to show us. That's not all He done, but He showed us the way. He showed us the way. Well, and His ministry reflects that. The things He did while He was on this earth after He began to preach and teach the kingdom of God. Maybe we should have looked at this, at the temptation of Christ first, because that was the first thing that happened after He was baptized of John in the Jordan River. Right from that point, that's where the Spirit led Him. Mark says, drove Him to the wilderness. He was driven of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. He was led of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. Temptation is basically Satan's attempt to get us to doubt God. Jesus was in a body of flesh. This is the devil's chance. It's his opportunity. God's weak in His view. The flesh is weak. Isn't that what the Bible says? It sure is. Why was the law didn't have the effect that it should have? Because of the flesh. Because the flesh is weak. It is a place for the devil to enter in. So, it's basically Satan's attempt to get us to doubt God and doubt the fact that He cares for us, and to go ahead and indulge our own heart's lust and desires. And we can always go back to the garden. And you was talking about belly this morning. I read this morning too that's how sin entered into the world. Eating. That's how sin entered into the world. Think about it. So it bears thinking about, doesn't it? What was the first sin? Eating something they shouldn't have ate. Wasn't supposed to eat. That was forbidden to eat. It's Satan's strategy. Now, he wants you to doubt that He even exists. If he can't do that, which that's a hard one for him. It's hard for the devil to convince people that God doesn't exist. Yeah. I've never met a real atheist. Yeah, I haven't. Right. I challenge any of them, because it don't take but a few words and you find out they ain't no atheists. They're just mad at God, and they didn't get their way, and God didn't do what they wanted, so they're mad at Him. And they'll spit it out pretty quick. Yeah. With a little prodding. It's hard for him to convince you there's no God when God is everywhere and evidence of Him is everywhere. Right. But he can convince you not to trust Him. Right. He can convince you that God's your enemy. Yeah. That God's holding out on you. That God ain't doing you right. And that you deserve more. And so that's his game. That's his game. That God would not tell you the truth. He can do that. So it's Satan's strategy to make us distrust and abandon God. That's what happened in the temptation of Christ here. It's not that Satan wants us or cares for us. You know, you see these celebrities and stuff, they made a deal with Satan. Why would Satan? He don't want anybody. He's a murderer. He's full of hatred and contempt for God and everything that God made him. And you think you're made in the image and likeness of God and the devil's going to want you and love you? No, the devil don't want you. And he don't want me. His motive is his hatred for God and his desire to do him hurt. As far as he's concerned, we're simply his pawns. Now everyone either yields to temptation or they escape it. Every time you're faced with it, and you will be faced with it, every day that you live on this side of heaven, you're going to be faced with temptation. All of us are. And we're either going to escape it or we're going to yield to it. Every temptation is a lie of the devil. Every temptation is an incitement or what's the word? No solicitors. Does that sound like I'm drunk or something? I feel kind of like it this morning. But it's a solicitation to evil. Yeah. To yourself. To indulge yourself. Get what you want. Do what you want. Resist anybody telling you what to do or correcting you. That's the essence of it. Yeah. So when you feel that in you, when you rear up against somebody else or anything else, that you ought to realize that. It's not about us. But with the devil, it's not about us either. It's about God. He's using us to get at God. Jesus escaped temptation and came out victorious. Yeah. Obviously, the Bible tells us so. And it wasn't because He was God. It was because He resisted the devil. He resisted temptation. He held to the truth. He trusted God. And that's how He escaped. Same way we escape. Same way we escape. We can't escape because we're God. Or we can't escape because God delivers us. We escape because we resist the devil and cling to God. Amen. Yes. Don't sit around thinking, I'm waiting on God to deliver me. God will deliver me from this temptation. No, you'll be like the guy in the boat, that drowned because he waited on God, and God sent all kinds of help and he wouldn't have it. I don't know what he was expecting. There's only one difference. Jesus escaped and came out victorious. We've all yielded and been defeated. And that's the only difference. Jesus was truly tempted in all points like as we are, yet He did not sin. He escaped and we didn't. That's why we're in trouble. The first thing to note is when He was tempted. When was He tempted? Right straight from the Jordan River, and the voice from heaven that said, "This is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased." Right after the announcement, "Behold the Lamb of God, which taketh away the sin of the world." Straight to being tempted. When? When are you going to be tempted? The temptation came right after all of that mountaintop, right after the highest confirmation of who He was. This is my beloved Son. What's the first words of the devil? If you are the Son of God. If thou art the Son of God. That's when you're going to be tempted. It works the same with us. We need to remember that right after heaven's open to us, hell will open itself to us as well. Need to remember that. Man, have I found that to be true. How many times have I told y'all that right when you think everything's well, you better, when you have won a victory and everything's well, is that when you ought to stand up on the top of the pile and brag? No, you better take cover, because the devil is going to unload on you. He's coming after you. I promise you. That's the way it works. He'll get you while your nose is in the air, while your head's up. You better just realize that's the way this warfare is. That's the way this game is. You get in a real war, you don't win one battle and everybody relax. Because you know the enemy is just regrouping and they're coming again. And the devil is relentless and he never stops. He doesn't rest. He never lets off the pressure. He wears out the saints. That's why it's a lifelong battle. Mm-hmm. Now when we know we get a great victory, we better double our guard, because the attack's sure to come. That seems like such a paradox, but it's proof of the existence of Satan and his armies and his hatred for God and righteousness. Do you understand what I'm saying there? The fact that he'll come right at you right after a great victory is proof that he is there. He is alive and strong and well, and still focused on his goal of destroying God and taking over. It's evidence that evil exists, and it's aggressively and intelligently managed by a power outside of ourselves and outside of God. There's another power at work here. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. Spiritual wickedness in high places. That's our enemy. There is. It's proof that exists. It amazes me, that the world out here can't look at the situation and realize that. Man, there's evil. And it's intelligently managed here. It's not just a bunch of hopeless, helpless sinners just grabbing what they can for themselves, and that's all it amounts to. No, it's much more than that. Much more than that. The next point is about what we ought to consider is when he was tempted, is to notice that he was tempted when he was hungry. He'd fasted 40 days and 40 nights. He was hungry. He was afterward and hungry. You haven't eaten for 40 days. Are you going to be strong? If you ain't dead, you're going to be weak. That's right. A lot of people die trying to fast that long. I've read about it all my life. If they go on a hunger strike, they don't last that long. Moses did it. Jesus did it. Elijah did it. And so that's when the devil attacked him. A fast that long, what does it do for you spiritually? Well, no, it strengthens you spiritually. But, so when did he attack? When he was physically weak and spiritually strong. That shows you how much the flesh, the body, has to do, the weakness of the bodies, the infirmity of the flesh has to do with temptation. You know, I preach on the mind all the time, and we've talked about a feeble mind and how weakness of the body affects our ability to fight this warfare, this spiritual warfare. That's when he attacked. When did the devil attack? Right after a great victory, when Jesus was weak in the body, physically, but strong spiritually. We take confidence in our spiritual, don't we? We put all of our confidence there. I know we trust in the flesh, but not really. I mean, everybody thinks, man, I'm close to God. I'm walking. This is the closest I've ever walked with God in my life. Devil can't touch me here. You better beware about that. That's exactly when he will attack you. I was almost in all evil in the midst of the congregation and assembly, the psalmist said. Where was the trouble? Right in the middle of everything, where it ought to have been right. See, the devil he's sly and clever and intelligent about his strategy. He don't wait to attack you when you think he would attack you. People aren't looking for the attack of the devil, because he attacks when they think all is well. When they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh. That's what happens. Temptation will come when you're at your weakest. And our weakest time comes a lot of times just after our greatest time. You remember Elijah? He fasted 40 days and 40 nights. But remember what happened immediately after he killed all the prophets, called a fire down from heaven, the sacrifice, he killed all the prophets. Then what happened? Well, Jezebel said, by this time tomorrow, you're going to be dead as 3 o'clock in the morning. And what did he do? He ran. And then he went to crying, Lord, let me die. I want to die. I've had enough of this. I don't want to live anymore. You'd think that he would have been shouting the victory. He thought there wasn't nobody left but him. And now there wasn't nobody left but him. He killed all the rest of them. And he says, Lord, let me die. I don't want this. So see, the victory don't really give you victory in your soul. This outward thing that everybody sees and says, man, God's really blessing. Look at that. That don't really strengthen your soul. It makes you vulnerable for attack from the devil. There's simply no time for us to kick back and relax in this warfare, for we're never safe. You are never safe. Neither am I from the devil's attack. In church, out of church, out in the world, by myself, in the woods. We're never safe from the devil's attack. From the tempter. You know, most Baptists just totally miss this. I don't even preach about the tempter anymore. It's all you. It's your sinful nature and it's your corrupt nature. And that's what I read in all these Calvinistic, even the old timers. They put it there, but they didn't leave this off. That's the difference in them and the modern Calvinists. The modern Calvinists leave this off. There is a tempter. There was sin before there was ever a man.
Yeah, that's true.
Or a woman. So that's not the source of sin. There's a tempter. There's an enemy of God who existed before we did. Who intended to destroy the throne of God, take over the throne of God before man ever existed. We're the pawns. God made us in His image and likeness. And we are the crown of God's creation. And we have a will, by the way. And we'll get to that in a minute. But that's what the devil wants to get at God with. We're the prize. Mm-hmm. So, the next important fact we need to remember is that the devil is limited in his power. Because he is a created being also. He's not God. He wants us to call him God. He likes to pretend he's God. He wants to be God, but he is not God. He is a created being. So he is limited. Y'all listening? This is important. He's limited by God. He can't do anything that God does not allow him to do. He wanted Job, let me at him. And God said, you can do this. That's all you're going to do to Job. He come back again and said, just let me do this to him. God said, okay, try it. God, the devil is limited. He can do so much, but God won't let him do but so much. And there hath no temptation taken you, but as such as is common to man. And God has provided a way of escape for every temptation. So, whatever God allows, He knows that we can escape it. Here's the issue. Will we escape it? That's the other limitation on the devil. The will of man. He can do nothing that we do not allow him to do. So if God allows it and we allow it, we're done for. But there's no point. All we got to do is say, no, devil, no. And that's it. That stops the whole thing right there. As long as we sit there in indecision and pondering and allowing him to try to talk us into it, we're going to lose. Mm-hmm. We're going to the next step where lust is going to conceive, and then it's going to bring forth sin, and sin, when it's finished, bringing forth death. We don't want to go that way. We want to escape. And Jesus has showed us how to do it right here. Alright. So the key to defeating the devil is to forbid him and simply tell him no. So that's too simple. And that's, well, you want it complicated? It ain't complicated. That's how it is. He can do nothing beyond that. When you say no, when Jesus said, get thee hence, Satan. You know what the next verse says? Well, then the devil leaveth him, and behold, angels came and ministered unto him. Now you want it that way? Then all you got to do is say, get thee hence, Satan. I know who you are, know what your game is. I'm not playing. I'm sticking with God. God said He'd never leave me nor forsake me, and I'm not leaving God or ever forsaking Him. So get thee hence, and the devil will leave. The devil will flee from you. This doesn't mean he gives up. He'll be back. But it does mean he's lost that battle. And it's one battle at a time. That's how we're fighting this war. I'd rather win a battle at a time than lose the war. And that's the way life is. It's one step at a time. That's the way you climb stairs, one step at a time. That's the way you get anything done. That's the way we're building this building out here, one little step at a time. And it takes time, but it'll get done. Yes. And that's the way this works. The key to praying for others is to pray God will say no to the devil who is deceiving them, and pray to God to strengthen them to say no to the devil themselves. We just pray blindly. Lord, help them do this and help them do that. Lord, deal with it, We need to pray specifically about what's going on. What's wrong with them? Well, the same. They're in the first stage of the temptation. That's where they're at. All the time. They live there. I'm getting ahead of myself. We need to look at the 3 points in which Jesus was tempted and realize that the devil will tempt us in the same points. Where was he tempted? Well, when he was alone and apart from other people and their influence. See, evil communications corrupt good manners. We ought to be separate from the world. Come out from among them and be separate. There is a thing about being separate from the world and sanctified and not running. Light and darkness can't have communion together. Yes! But we use as an excuse too often and a justification for our children, for ourselves, for everybody that we say, well, they just got around the wrong people and that's what made them go bad. We put too much value on that. That's a factor, but that's not the factor. When was Jesus tempted? Where was he tempted? He was tempted when he was alone. God didn't drive him into the big city. Didn't lead him into the big city to be tempted of the devil, where all the dance halls and the gambling joints and all of the wild women were. He led him out into the wilderness alone to be tempted of the devil. This is a big deal. This is the Son of God being tempted of the devil. This ain't little old me or you. So this is the temptation of temptations. This is the best shot the devil has ever had, ever will have to win this war against God. So it's being played to the max. So where does he go to be tempted? Alone. So you think being alone, the devil can't tempt me. No, being alone is good for us. But being alone is no safe place from temptation. The devil's going to be there too. In your closet, in your wilderness, in your solitary place, in your prayer room, in your secret garden, wherever it is that you go to be alone. Guess who else is going to be there? You can lock your door, but he can get through the door. Because it's a spiritual thing, not, he can still speak to you. And he will. We need to remember that this was the best the devil could do. So we know that he gave it his very best shot with the Son of God, who had become the Son of Man. If he can win this, and he wins the whole game. So the first point was to question and demand proof of who he was. He said, if thou be the Son of God. Verse 3. If thou be the Son of God, command these stones be made bread. All right? The devil questioned the fact of who he was because of the fact that he was hungry. Now y'all listen. What's the devil going to say to you? A lot of times he will cause you to think. Here's the thing. Here's the essence of this. God don't care about you, or you wouldn't be having such a hard time.
That's right.
If God loved you and you were really His son, then how could all these things be happening unto you? Look here. You got to take things into your own hands here. I mean, if you're going to have anything to eat, if you're going to be taking care of it all, you're going to have to do it yourself, because obviously God ain't going to do it for you. That's the first temptation. And that's why I said a while ago, that's where most people live that are just totally defeated. God doesn't care about me because of all that's happened to me. Look at all the broken homes and the marriages and everything in such a moral state of rot as it is now. Look at all the children that have grown up in the last several decades now with broken homes. And do you know how they feel? Nobody cares about me. No, they don't even know what it is to have a real father or a real mother. They have a mother that only cares for herself, a father who only cares for himself. They've never had anybody really. Now, isn't that pretty much the majority of the way things are? So the devil's got them, see, just clutched right there. He can come to them and say, if you think God cares about you, why don't you pray? See if He'll give you something. Just put Him to the test. If thou be the Son of God, turn these stones into bread. Because the Bible says, you know. That's what He said to pretext it, didn't He? The tempter came to Him and just said that. He was hungry. He said that. So that's how he was tempted. That was the first point of the temptation. If God really cared about you, why would He leave you in such a predicament as this? And surely if God loved you, He'd take better care of you than this. Your poverty and your want is proof that God has abandoned you. Don't you know that? You ever feel like that? Have you ever heard that voice? Have you ever heard that in your mind? Why would God let this happen to me? And why doesn't God take care of this problem for me? Why do I have to suffer through all of this? If God loved me and God's seen all this coming, how could He do this to me? You ever heard that? Do you know who's talking to you when you're hearing that? When you start hearing that kind of reasoning in your own mind, who's talking to you? Same one talked to Jesus in the wilderness. He just knows so many words. He just has so many tricks. And we're not ignorant of His devices. They're all the same. He knows what works, so He uses it over and over. Your pain is proof that God doesn't care about you. Why would God let you suffer and have pain and want and poverty? Why would life be so hard if God really loved you? If you were really God's son, how could you? This is the temptation. So that didn't affect Jesus. He suffered hearing that, pondering that. He was tempted in all points, as we are. He heard the devil's reasoning like we hear it in our minds. He felt what we feel when the devil's able to stick us with those fiery darts and almost convincing us, and maybe convincing us for a moment that God doesn't really care. And that maybe we don't even belong to God anyway. And life's just vain and hopeless. And there's no future. And nothing matters. I mean, you gotta focus your mind to comprehend that Jesus felt that. He's doing this for us, by the way. He did this for us, not for Himself. He was God. He could have handled this with divine power. No effort on His part. God cannot sin. And Jesus could have handled it that way. But always remember that He didn't handle it that way. He handled it just like we have to handle it. He was in all points like us. As far when it came to sin, temptation, do you realize that in Hebrews, where I read there in chapter 2, where it talked about that? He was in all points tempted like as we are. And it behooved Him to be made like His brethren in all things. So He knows. That's how He can be a high priest, our high priest that knows the feelings of our infirmities. He understands how we feel when the devil is after us and trying to talk to us like this. And convincing us that we ain't nobody. And we don't matter. And nobody cares. And God don't care. And if you could ever get a hold of that, it'd make you love the Lord a lot more. And so you got to take matters into your own hands and do something about it yourself. That's the devil talking to the Lord there. Now, the second point of temptation was to take him from the wilderness to the city, where everybody could see. Quite a difference. It's worthy to note right there. It's one thing when the devil tempts you in your mind alone. It's what he says to you in your mind. But then it's what you got to deal with everybody looking on. That's a different thing. We like to keep all of our temptation and our sin and our secret thoughts all to ourselves, but it can't always be that way. There's another point of temptation, another kind of temptation, if you will. But he took him from the wilderness to the city. Let me read the verse. I keep going back here because, all right, Jesus. All right, here it is, verse 5. Then the devil taketh him up into the holy city. Take note of all these words. From the wilderness alone, up into the holy city, and set him on a pinnacle of the temple. Isn't that the highest point? I mean, a pinnacle, isn't that the highest place? And saith unto him, here it is again, if thou be the Son of God, cast thyself down. Well, that's a dumb, to me that's a dumb thing. Why? I mean, if the devil's so powerful, why don't he just cast him down? He has to ask him to do it to himself. Yeah. The devil can't destroy you unless you let him talk you into destroying yourself. That's how it is. Right there. Cast thyself down, for it is written, He shall give His angels charge concerning thee, and in their hands they shall bear thee up, lest at any time thou dash thy foot against a stone. The devil knew the Scriptures. He knows the Scriptures. And he knows how to wrest them and twist them and use them against you. Cast thyself down. Like that demon-possessed boy when Jesus came off of the mountain. Cast himself into the fire. Cast himself down. The devil says, cast yourself down. If he owns you, that's what you do. You're at his bidding. If you're listening to his voice and you're led by his voice, that's what you do. You're going to destroy yourself. Jesus said unto him, it is written, again, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. Where was he tempted this time? Again, where? Where was it? Well, it wasn't in the desert alone, but it was in the holy city. Why did he say Jerusalem? Because he's making a point here to make it more clear to us where the temptation took place. The holy city. Where in the holy city? In the temple. In the holy city. Where in the temple? In the pinnacle of the temple. Can't get no higher. Can't get a safer place. Couldn't get to a place where religion surrounds you and the people of God surround you and everything is at its utmost perfection for your safety and survival against the devil. Well, that's where he attacked him. You can grow up in a Christian home. You can have the best mom and dad in the world. You can go to the best church in the world. You can have everything right in your life. Everything going for you. You're a prime target for the devil. Y'all ought to remember that. Every parent ought to remember that about their children. Yes, you can create the most perfect environment for them to grow up. And you're creating a place where the devil's going to attack also. Just don't forget that. We can't keep our children safe from the devil's temptation. No matter what we do. Do y'all understand that? You need to get that. If you think you can, you're badly mistaken and you're going to end for a great disappointment and disaster because we're safe nowhere from the devil. In the church, in the best church, in the best position in the church, the most respect and honor from all the other Christians, no place is safe. It wasn't in the desert alone this time, but in the holy city. and on the pinnacle of the temple, on the highest point of the most holy place, and in the midst of the people of God. So there's no city, there's no rural setting, where there's no place on earth where we're safe from temptation. We think, boy, if I could just get me a place out in the country, way out in the woods, and just where there's nobody and no roads or nothing. I think I'll go to Alaska and just get one of them places where you got to fly out and drop in and never see nobody, never have any problems. Life would just be peaceful and wonderful then. The devil knows right where you're at. And he don't have to have an airplane to get to you. You're still going to be tempted. Tempted to what? Drink and take drugs and gamble and all that. No. But you'll be tempted to abandon God. Doubt God. Doubt that He promised you anything. That's not where you can be a good Christian, is alone in the wilderness. Oh well. There's no place safe. That's my point. Then again he said, if thou be the Son of God. If thou be the Son of God, cast thyself down. He demands that He prove Himself and who He is in front of many people. Y'all listening to me? That's the temptation. You ever feel like you got to prove yourself? You ever feel like everybody's looking? I got to do something here to prove. I got to do something big. I got to have something in my life that proves who I am. That God is blessing me. That God approves me. I need some kind of confirmation besides the promises of God. I need something besides what He says and what I say. Got to do something. Got to have something. What does the devil want him to do? Destroy himself. Wow. Well, he demands that he prove himself. The devil tries to convince us that we got to prove ourselves to others, or what we have is not real. How many times do we fall in this temptation? How many times do we bail off into something like this in response to the devil's taunting? I believe a lot of people become preachers. I believe a lot of people go to mission fields. I do. I believe that they're not led of God. I believe a lot of them are responding to the temptation of the devil to prove themselves.
Yes, yeah, that's true. Yes, that's very true.
You can tell by what happens. They die in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Spiritually and otherwise. You don't have to prove nothing to nobody about your relationship with God, about your standing with God. It's the Spirit that bears witness, not us. See, we always take that and say, that's the Spirit that bears witness. That's me. Me and God, and the Spirit and God, and the Spirit confirms it to me. No, the Spirit confirms it to other people also. It's the Spirit that bears witness.
Yes.
So that's all we need. Don't have to do some spectacular thing. We were talking the other day about it. What doth the Lord thy God require of thee?
Do justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with
There you go. Now nobody heard you, but it's to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God. That is what God requires of us. If there's any increase, who gives it? God does. We were talking about it because we read in there where Jesus said the fields are white unto harvest and the laborers are few. She said, well, what are we supposed to do? What can a church do? And that's what I said. Well, that's why the preaching on righteousness. If the people of God would just humble themselves and pray and seek God's face and turn from their wicked ways, that's it. If the people of God would walk with God in holiness, that's all that we need. Walk humbly. Love mercy. Do justly. That means do right. That's translated. That's what it means right there. Do right. Then the world could be won. But the devil's temptation is, no. Ain't nobody going to believe you until you do something spectacular like this. Just cast yourself down from that high place and splatter on the sidewalk down there. And you know it ain't going to happen because God has promised in His book that He would take care of you no matter what happens, no matter what you do, no matter what mistakes you make. He will take care of you. So no matter what you do, you can't mess it up. That's the devil's talk. Let me tell you something, you can mess it up. Because the only reason to do something spectacular in the sight of others to prove that you are the child of God, the only reason for that is pride. And, well, that's all there is, really. It's just pride. The three temptations, the three aspects of it are the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. And they're all here, too. It's just another message with another perspective on this, but they're all here. How many times we fall into this temptation? How long do we have to live before we realize that it's always the devil who tries to get us to exalt ourselves and make some kind of show for others to see so they'll believe us? How many times do we have to be coaxed into doing something ridiculous to prove our faith? And how many times do we have to be coaxed into trying to force God to give us further confirmation of His existence and power by doing what we demand of Him? You got a sick baby. You got a sick loved one. And you lay down the rules for God, what you expect. And He must prove Himself to you or you're not going to believe Him anymore. So, how's that going to work? That's exactly what the devil's doing here. Same thing, just turned a little different way. Demanding of God. He's trying to see how Jesus answers him? What did Jesus say? Behold, it is written, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. That's all He had to say. You're going to dare God? You're going to try to force God's hand and force Him to move and do what you want? Jesus said, no, that ain't the way it works with God. And I'm telling you this morning, that's not the way it works with God. You trust God. But you don't jump off of high places. You don't cast yourself down. You don't try to be some spectacular miracle worker so everybody can see that that you got the power of God somehow. That is not how it works. It's a temptation to evil. It's a temptation to abandon God when you got that kind of reasoning in your mind. It's anti-Christ, anti-God to think that way. That the harder I believe, the more I believe, the more I pray, it's going to happen. You pray until something happens. What if you pray and nothing happens? I never knew anybody kept praying. Not of those people who claim that motto or whatever. They pray a few times, give up. Say, well, God don't care. He won't answer my prayers. I've had them tell me, I prayed and God didn't answer my prayer. Yeah, He did. He said no. Can't you understand? No. You got an answer. It just wasn't what you wanted. Oh. How many times do we have to be coaxed like that? The devil said, cast thyself down. And like I said a while ago, the devil couldn't do it. He couldn't cast him down. He didn't have that power. He didn't have that authority. God wouldn't let him do that. So He couldn't just throw Jesus off. Why didn't He? I mean, He could have tried. We hear about the power of the devil and how scary and all that he is. Why didn't He just wrestle him and throw him off of there? Because he was limited. And so I say to you again that the devil can't destroy us. All he can hope to do is talk us into destroying ourselves. And so the third point, real quickly here, was the same as the first two, but presented more boldly and plain. Now what's the first two? He's trying to get him to doubt and abandon God. Doubt God, challenge God, and when God don't do what you say, abandon Him. So here's the third one. again the devil in verse 8 and 9. The devil taketh him up into an exceeding high mountain, going up higher. Came from the wilderness up to the holy city, up to the top of the pinnacle, now up to an exceeding high mountain, and showeth him all the kingdoms of the world, and the glory of them, and saith unto them, all these things will I give thee, if thou wilt fall down and worship me. Up, up, up. Up. When you go up, how does your view increase? How does your view? It increases. The higher you get, the more you can see. Get that. This is part of the way the devil tempted Jesus. Kept bringing him up. When you're in the wilderness, you don't see much. Can't see far. Especially this time of year, go out in the woods, you can't see very far at all. The leaves have already closed everything up. You come out and get up on a high place, you can see better. But you go to an exceeding high mountain, way up in this, and now you can see all. He showed him all the kingdoms of the world and the glory of them. That's quite a bit. And saith unto him, all these things will I give thee, if thou wilt fall down and worship me. Abandon God and worship me, and all this will be yours. See, there's a lot of people in the world that think you can buy somebody's love with things. Parents do with their children. Men do it with their wives. They think that the more I give them, the more they will love me. But it works just the opposite. It's the devil's lie that things will make you happy.
That's right.
Possessions will make you happy. You can have all this glory right now and all these things if you'll just give up God and come with me. He's a seducer. But a seducer is a liar and a deceiver. And that's what Satan, his goal is to get us to abandon God. That's what temptation, that's the essence of it. Forget God and do what you want. Forget God, get what you want. That's what that's the message to him. That's the message to Eve in the garden. There's something here that you could have, and it's good for you. It's good to look at. It's pleasant to look upon. It is good. It's good for food and to be desired, to make one wise. Why not? Why not? God's just saying don't, because He's withholding from you. He knows that in the day you eat thereof, your eyes will be open. You'll be understand. He's keeping you sheltered from everything. He doesn't really want you. That's the thing. It's like this stuff we mentioned in Sunday school there. All the immorality and the adultery and all of that. It's not, He don't really want you. You're only a pawn. He's using you to hurt somebody else. And that's the way a lot of the adultery and all of that is in the world. It's just the underlying part of it is to hurt somebody else. And that's the devil. That's his game. That's his motive. That's why he's doing it. His hatred for God is his motive for tempting us. Jesus wouldn't tolerate any more from him. Get thee hence, Satan. And Jesus said, for it is written, thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. So when we stand firm, listen to me, and this is it. When we stand firm and vow to God the same love and loyalty that He has promised us, when He said, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. When you tell that to the devil, you know what he's going to do? He's going to depart. For the time. He'll back off. But then he'll come at you again with the same thing. Verse 11, then the devil leaveth him, and behold, angels came and ministered unto him. Now that there is quality time. You don't have a whole lot of that. You don't have a whole lot of time when the devil leaves you alone. But what little there is very precious and sweet. When you can commune with God and the angels minister without the devil intervening. We don't have much of that. Jesus fought pretty hard for that little bit of time right there. He left him. I don't know if did it say this? No. In one of the other Gospels it said the devil left him for a season. He was back. But for the time being, he's gone. Won't you take that little bit of time? I mean, won't you be glad for that? I am. It's a sweet feeling when the devil departs. All that noise stops. The doubts and all of the questions are not there. And it's just fully trusting and sweet fellowship with God and others, without that need of trying to prove yourself, or I'm not good enough, I'm not it's always something wrong with me kind of feelings and things going on in your head. Don't let the devil mess with you and all of that. Don't hate on yourself. You be thankful for the way God made you. And I'm not talking about your character and all of that. I'm talking about, that's not what people cry about anyway. They cry about being overweight. So I said fat enough in Sunday school. I won't say that. But, or their hair, or their face, or something, something just ain't right about them. And the devil uses that to jump right in this pattern right here. If thou art the Son of God. Did Jesus know He was the Son of God? Of course He did. So how foolish does it sound for the devil to say, art thou the Son of God? That's why we believe like we do around here. Do you know you're saved? Do you know that God is your God, is your Father? Jesus is your Savior. Do you know that? Well, if you know that, then you're ready to resist temptation. First thing He's going to say to you, you probably ain't even really saved. How could somebody like you be saved anyway? Just look at all the trouble you got in your life. Something must be wrong with you, because if God was pleased with you and loved you, you wouldn't be having all this trouble. Y'all listening? That's the devil talking to you. I can promise you that's the devil talking to you. God, the Spirit of God doesn't do that. The Spirit of God comforts you. He assures you that it'll be all right. He assures you that you're His child. You have the witness in yourself. He does witness. His Spirit to our spirit bears witness to our spirit that we are the children of God. So that's how that works. When the devil comes along and says you're so lousy and your life's such a mess and you got so many troubles that there's no way out of, you might as well give it up. Come with me. Look at all this I can give you. You'd be better off not serving God. Look at everybody around you, how easy they got it, how much money they can make, how easy life is for them. You're a fool. That's the devil. You better just stick with God. He's chosen the poor of this world rich in faith. And all the people I've known through the years that really had something with God, there's not a one of them without exception that didn't have all kinds of trouble in their life. It's just the way it is. That stuff helps us to trust God. Temptation, there's a whole area we never even touched here, but it's trying. How do you even know what you got unless it's tried?
That's true.
You can jump in your car out here and say, I got brakes! But you don't know if you got brakes until you step on them.
That's right.
Have you ever stepped on your brakes and they weren't there? Not a good feeling. But I knew I didn't have brakes. When that happened, I knew there's something wrong with the brakes. I need to fix it. So I did. Before something terrible happened.
Yeah.
Temptation serves a purpose in our lives. It makes us run to God.
Yes.
Jesus said, "It is written. It is written. It is written." So how much do you know that is written? When the devil quotes Scripture to you, or you hear some of these worldly gainsayers quoting Scripture to you about justifying wickedness and stuff, do you know what to say to them? Yeah. All right, bow with me. Father, thank you for the Word of God. Thank you, Lord, for the wisdom given here in just the account of how the devil tempted the Lord. And please help us to take every lesson we can from it, apply it to our lives as He tries the same with us. But we're a much softer target than the Lord Himself. Please help us, Lord, to keep what we've heard and learned this morning. Apply it in our lives that we might walk closer to You, that we might gain more victory in our life, and that we might have the wisdom and the strength to resist the devil and watch him flee from us. Help us, Lord, I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.